Welcome to our session of Introduction to the Toxic Plants of Kashmir, and today we shall be discussing the plants which are considered as cardiac toxins or cardiac poisons. These plants are related to the digitalis, purpurea or foxglove and include the commonly available plants here in Kashmir nowadays on the roadsides being planted as ornamental plants and include the Nerium, Oleander and Thevetin. Nerium oleander is also called as Kaneer in our vernacular language, and it is very dangerous in view of its effects on the heart. Common oleander with pink colored flowers contains the principal cardiac glycosides oleandrin, nerium and folinerin, while as the yellow oleander, which has maximum quantity of cardiac glycosides in its nuts, and it has other toxins in its leaves and flowers like thevetin A and B, thevatoxin, nerifolin, pyruvoside, ruvoside, and many others, which are mainly steroidal glycosides having a steroidal backbone with lactone functional group and one or two or many glucose units linked to the steroidal backbone. While all parts of the Nerium oleander and Thevetia peruviana are toxic, but the seeds contain more glycoside than do other parts of the plant. And we have another related species, that is Thevetia peruviana, that is the yellow oleander, and its seeds, which are called as lucky nuts, they also, if consumed, lead to the death. And this is one of the most commonly used agent for suicide in the Sri Lanka and India. This plant, Nerium oleander, has usually pink to reddish colored flowers, whereas the Thevetia is having yellow colored flowers, and one can easily identify these by the color of the flowers. Cardiac glycosides bind to and then inhibit the membrane-bound sodium-potassium ATPase enzyme in the cardiac myocytes, baroreceptor cells, and skeletal muscle cells. Inhibition of sodium-potassium ATPase in cardiac myocytes results in accumulation of intracellular sodium, which subsequently results in accumulation of calcium within the myocytes via sodium-calcium exchanger, and the resultant increase in intracellular calcium then stimulates further release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and the increased intracellular calcium interacts with troponin C of the actin-myosin complex to cause increased contraction, increased automaticity in the form of premature ventricular contractions on electrocardiograms. And inhibition of membrane-bound enzyme sodium-potassium in baroreceptor cells and skeletal muscle contributes to the increased vagal tone and hyperkalemia, respectively. If an animal, or if by mistake the human consumes the extracts of this plant, the onset and duration of action will definitely depend upon the amount taken. When the animals consume this plant, the onset of action is also variable depending upon the contents of the gut, whether the gut is empty or whether it is full. That determines the onset of action. The symptoms which are observed in case of the humans are nausea, vomiting. Then there are visual disturbances because of inhibition of sodium potassium ATPase of the eyes, and then we have the appearance of halos, yellow and green colors. Then we have mental status changes. There is lethargy in the animal, stupor, weakness, and ultimately the cardiac disturbances, palpitation, bradycardia, arterioventricular block, sinus node block, extrasystoles, ventricular arrhythmic syndrome, hyperkalemia, and finally there is the death. For treatment, we should immediately contact the emergency services of the hospital, and the treatment is initiated by administration of the activated charcoal and by cardiac pacing and administering antiarrhythmic drugs. And when available, we have a specific the immunological treatment for this, that is digoxin specific fragments are administered, and ancillary treatments like maintenance of fluid and electrolyte balance are equally important. But one thing is very important, that is you have to avoid calcium administration, which otherwise leads to the generation of the stone heart, because once the heart will be contracted by the administration of calcium, it won't be then able to come back into the diastole. It doesn't relax, and that we call this stone heart. And therefore one should very much be careful if one has this plant as an ornamental plant. Hedge clippings should not be fed to the animals, and its branches should not be used for any other purposes, like for roasting of the meat as skewers, and that is equally very dangerous. Thanks for patiently hearing and watching to our video. Thank you.